Hey guys, welcome back to Mainville ATV and Outdoors, where we do all things all-terrain. You guys know we're into UTVs, we're into ATVs, snowmobiles, you name it, anything that gets us off-road. This is kind of our next step, the evolution in our entire setup. So this is going to be our off-road headquarters, that's what we're calling it. It's also Project Mule, our 2021 Chevrolet Duramax. We are turning this thing into a way of not only transporting our vehicles, but camping in it. And part of that is going to be what we're installing today. We're doing a full lighting kit, so let's get into it. So we're ready to get started. I have Drake here with us, and he's going to be helping out. He started his own channel, so for you guys watching that know Mainville ATV really well, Drake's been with us for the last couple of years. But of course, because we are moving, Drake had to start his own channel. So go check him out, Louder Off-Road. It's going to be a link in the description.
Heck yeah.
He's helping me today, trying to wrap my head around this project, and we have to get started front to back. So I think we're going to start talking about a few of those pieces in a moment. But first, I want to show you what we're actually working on. So like I said before, this is my 2021 Chevrolet Duramax. What we did back here is the beginnings of our off-road headquarters. What this does is basically give us a storage solution around a camper that's going to go back here. So we have a camper that we're picking up in about a month or two from this video, and it'll fill that void. This was specifically designed for that camper. What it allows us to do is have all of our off-road gear, wet, muddy stuff, tools, chains, tow ropes, whatever we're going to need outside here, and our living space is going to be in the camper with our clothing and whatever. We have like a garage and a home. So all of this is going to allow for us to tow either our side-by-side and ATV or the sleds. So this is going to be a multi-season setup, and the camper that we have has a diesel heater and everything else. So I can't wait to show you guys that. But that's what this is. It's not a service body. I know it looks like one, and especially when we're done with this lighting, but this is actually a camper body. So a big thank you to Auxbeam for kind of providing our one-stop solution to everything we need. What we have here is their 8-gang RGB switch setup. What this is going to allow us to do is basically run a switch. It's all programmable. You can have any accessories you want plugged into their setup. This is going to be inside the cab, and you're going to see later on that all of this can be customized with whatever color you want it to be. They have stickers to cover each button depending on what you want it to associate to. And then this is going to run to a fuse block that all of your accessories are going to be on. There's also a big resettable breaker, so it's all protected. So essentially this will provide a one-stop shop, one box. You can set it up and apply any accessories you want. It just so happens that the accessories that we have are all from Auxbeam. We have a variety of stuff from Auxbeam. They sent us all sorts of different pods. This one in particular is just going to be a reverse pod, so I can light up my camping area, essentially is what I want to do with it. It also has some pretty unique features with that switch that I just mentioned, so you can do momentary and pulse setup, so you can make it look even more like a service truck. But yeah, some really cool stuff that we're going to show you at the end once this is all done. We also, of course, have some gigantic light bars. The problem is I don't have my front bumper done yet, so I don't know if this is going to quite make it on just yet. There are some accessories that are going to be a little difficult because I'm lining up other projects, but they did send us out a full suite of incredible stuff. One of the solutions we need was lighting for inside the cabinets. So we got a little creative, and Auxbeam sent us out rock lights, which honestly kind of make perfect sense. The way they mount is fairly flush, so I think we can make this work. So essentially we're going to have RGB rock lights inside the cabinets. And with the functionality of the switch that I was talking about earlier and its Bluetooth capabilities, you'll be able to actually turn this stuff on with your phone or a tablet that you want to set up inside the camper or whatever. So I think we're going to experiment with some of this stuff, and I'm really excited to see how this turns out. The nice perk about obviously all of this coming from one manufacturer is they thought about how it would all work together. They also sent us out different lighting to try and different marker lights, some more universal stuff depending on your vehicle, not vehicle specific stuff. So some of this will require some legwork, but I'm pretty excited to get into this. So what we're going to do now is move on to actually getting the main circuit set up. So essentially from the engine bay, we're going to have to go off one of my 2 batteries and set up the resettable breaker. That breaker is then going to power the fuse block. That fuse block is where all of your accessories are going to go, and that is all going to be controlled through a switch that's inside the cab that I showed you. What that will allow is basically all of the wires that are going to be going through my camper body, they're all going to be on that fuse block, and I can control it from the inside. I can also use the app, and I can program the app to be just the same as my physical switch inside the truck. And even if I'm outside camping, I can turn it all on and use it the way I want to use it. So if I want to light up my camping area with the lights that they provided, I can literally just open up the app and then hit the button and turn them on. So we're going to go check on Drake and see where he got to. I'm pretty sure he's already getting right into it. So let's start with that. So this is my secondary battery here. And what we're trying to figure out now is where we're going to install the beginning of the circuit, which is that resettable breaker. This is what's going to supply or not supply the entire system with power. So we're trying to decide where we're going to mount this and how we're going to mount it. Our first idea is basically to mount it on top of that black cover right there and leave us enough length that you can still remove that cap, because that's my fuse block.
Your oil spray, man, is going to drive me bananas.
People from Ontario understand oil sprays, okay?
Just wash your truck more.
No.
Stop being lazy.
Oil sprays. We've agreed that we're going to put the breaker here, and from here we're going to run down the frame rail, and we're going to enter into the camper box back there, and this is where I'm going to be working. We've decided that the smartest place to put it is actually underneath this drawer. All these drawers come out really easy, and from there we can basically power all of the accessories on the service body, camper body. I'm getting that mixed up. From there we can then go into the cab, run the physical switch, and that will basically allow us to control all of this from inside the cab, as well as obviously the Bluetooth features. I can use it when I'm inside my camper. So I'm going to get started here and meet Drake there. Okay, so I have my drawers pulled out. Literally takes 2 seconds. And the idea here is that I am going to put the fuse panel in underneath the drawers, so I'm not taking up space that I might want for other things that I have in the future. So what we're going to do is basically run the 2 power cables that it requires, here and here, and then you have a signal wire there, and that's the actual controller inside the cab. These are all of your accessories. So the reason why we want this located here is this is right where all the accessories are going to be. So instead of having all of our accessories leave the camper box all the way to the front and do that where most people would do it, we're going to do something a little unique. Auxbeam prepared us with a bunch of brackets and stuff, but what we're doing is quite custom and different. They're obviously not prepared for this scenario, and you can't expect them to be. So we're going to be doing some spacers. These are actually brake line crimps for those mechanics out there. And I'm basically going to space it up, and the reason for that is when this cover is on, there's no way to get the wires in unless I start cutting things, because the wires are made to come in from underneath here. So I'm just going to space it up a little bit, and that'll allow all of our accessory wires to come in underneath. And when this is said and done, everything's going to be nice and flush and hidden underneath the panel. If I need to check this or add something or work on it, it literally takes me 2 seconds to pull the bottom drawer out and have a look. We're going to get to work on that. I'm going to get this mounted dead center here, and that should leave us plenty of room underneath my bottom drawer. So I have everything installed, but I uninstalled it obviously because we're going to be running wires and moving and manipulating things. This is where my main power and ground are going to come from. And the reason is that behind that is an open cavity. So we'll be able to navigate the wires down and through the wiring harness that follows the frame. So it'll be nice and tucked and very safe. This is ready to go. So I'm going to start doing other projects because Drake's already making good time heading towards it.
Power to the circuit breaker ran. I just got the ground fished up through the fender line, behind the fender liner up the thing. We were talking about this is the factory fuse box cover. So you need room to be able to take this off, but the loop of wire just looked gross. So I loomed it up to make it look factory, and then there's a bunch of extra wire in here because OCD. So that'll all look factory. I'm just getting a ground ran. So I got everything down into the 2 spools that are under the truck, and I'm coming towards Kyle already. So he's gonna start mounting lights, and I'm just gonna keep going on wiring things, and then I'm gonna start drilling holes in his $100,000 interior.
The only thing that we're missing from the portion that we've already done is the actual physical switch. So the way I see it is I want to mount it right here. First of all, because it's right by all of my other lights, makes sense in my brain. 2, it's a great spot, so while I'm driving, operating, or I open my door and I can access it physically right here, so I don't actually have to hop in and go do whatever. I can just do it from here in case I'm in muddy waders or something like that, right? So this is the perfect spot for me. So the next light that I'm going to do, and the first one that's kind of the easiest decision for me, is going to be these flush mount pods. And what I'm going to do is basically measure out where I can put these pods on both sides, because there's going to be one here and one on the opposite side. And what Auxbeam does is they give you a template, so I can measure out center wherever I want this template, mark it. I need to cut out this void, because that's where the back of this flush mount's going to go. And then obviously you see the bolt holes, so you can drill those out, mount this up, and then we're going to run this wiring to the fuse panel that I have a couple boxes ahead. So I think I've decided that I'm going to basically line this up with my bottom LED here. This is going to be where the template really comes in handy. So all I did was line it up where I wanted it, chalked it out. I'm going to do a rough cut on the inside and then see if it fits. And I'll basically adjust if I need to. And I'll come back and essentially drill my mounting holes, no issues. I like this spot because the wiring actually runs down the box on this side already. So that way it's just kind of flush and hidden. And it's nice and low, leaving me mounting room if I ever want to do something up here in the future. So there we have it. We have 2 installed floodlights. These have a couple of uses actually, so I can obviously use them for reverse, even though those are plenty bright to be honest. But if I want to flood my trailer deck or my camp area, anything behind me, I have lots of extra light if I want. There's also ambers in here. And like I'll show you guys later, you can actually pulse those. So you can use ambers in an emergency scenario or whatever. I know it's overkill, but there's nothing like overkill in my mind. I love all the extra stuff we've got going on. So those are prepped, and I'm going to start working on figuring out how to cross wires from that side to this side. And it sounds like Drake has quite the adventure going on over here. We were just troubleshooting how to power certain things, but we're going to go ask him what's going on. So obviously Drake has been busy. You can see our effort here. We have the power and ground coming in, supplying the fuse box. Right now, he temporarily has a signal wire, which is that red one right there, straight to battery essentially, so that we can run this without having it fused into the box, because we're trying to figure that out right now. This is the controller wire. This is the one that's actually running all the way over here into the cab, located right here. Don't worry about the green. You can change that to any color you want, and then there's covers for the actual buttons depending on what you programmed them to. But he's also testing power at the source. So these are some clearance lights that Auxbeam sent us that are going to go into the grill at some point, but we're just using them to test everything we've got going on here. But Drake, explain the relay and what we are attempting to do.
We need to make, I remember the term, we need to make ourselves a dead man switch. Kyle wants to be able to use these lights with the truck turned off, so he doesn't have to have the key in the run or the accessory position. This controller needs a signal to be turned on. So what we're going to do is make a dead man switch, which essentially will allow power through an auxiliary switch all the time, or it'll click a relay over under key power and make the other switch essentially inoperative. But whichever way you put it, it'll work, on or off. Because if we don't put a dead man switch and we put, Kyle wants a toggle switch in the box so that he can power up this module and run lights for the camper, and if he wants to look cool and turn all his clearance lights on, blah, yada, yada, yada. If he flicks that toggle switch with it just teed together, what he's gonna do is then send that 12 volt backwards in through where we tap into the key power and essentially backfeed the computers the wrong way, which either equals letting the smoke and the monkeys out of the box, or it's actually going to power his truck up in some way, shape, or form. BCMs.
Yeah, something's going to happen. So basically, power is going to be supplied backwards like we turned the power on anyway, but in a not great fashion.
In a not great fashion. So what essentially when they turn the key off, we don't want to have power going back where power is not supposed to be the wrong way.
But the purpose of all this lighting is so that when we are setting up camp and we want to light it up, let's say it's nighttime, I can just come in here, turn it on, and do all of my business, and even use my cell phone from the actual camper or tablet to do any of the lighting or accessories I have wired to this. So that's the reason why this is important. Okay, so the next step, now that I've got that last job done, Drake's making huge headway on figuring out the dead man switch. The next is cab lighting. So when I was talking to Auxbeam, they came up with a really funny solution actually, and it makes sense for our channel. These are rock lights, which you'll see on Jeeps and side-by-sides and everything else, wheel wells. But because of the way they flush mount, because of the foam, the sticky foam they have here, we can mount them anywhere in these cabinets. The only thing is we're obviously going to have screws protruding, so I'm going to come up with something for that. But basically, we can put these pods in, and they gave us these 4-wire connections, and they all kind of gang up because this is an 8 LED set. So we have 8 LEDs that we can put in all of these different bins because I have 8 bins. And then they gave us a bunch of extension wire. And instead of running a switch like you would use for your setup without all of this extra stuff, we're actually going to cut that switch off and basically run this into the fuse block and controller that they have. And that allows us to control all of these bins from not only the app, just like everything else, but the actual switch up front. And we're going to have a little dance party when we put this on pulse. I'm going to go through and actually start thinking about how to install these in each cabinet, but good thinking on Auxbeam's part for sure. Okay, so I've been hard at work getting all the wiring from one side to the other while Drake has been figuring out the dead man switch and everything else. We've made really good progress. So essentially on this side, I have my LEDs all following the top. I have to find a way of mounting in this corner. I left a little bit of slack in order to do so. But you're going to see the LED pod, the flush mount, and the cabinet lights go down here. And I have another harness that I have done here at the back, basically around my spare tire. So it's all routed nice, and then it'll come up on this side exactly the same. And I'm going to run along the bottom, and we're right at the cabinet where Drake has been hard at work with the dead man switch.
Which is done and functioning. The only thing left is to tie up some wires so he can now turn it on from the cabinet and the key, and neither of them vice versa.
Won't backfeed my ECU.
Won't backfeed the ECU, won't interfere with each other, and it's stupid proof, so even if the switch is on and the key is on, because the relay can only go one way or the other, it doesn't matter. Worst thing Kyle could do is leave the switch on and his battery go dead. That's a him problem.
So normally you don't install it this way. Auxbeam has a pile of different ways you can do things, but essentially you're supposed to just grab a fuse, grab a radio power, memory power, key power, whatever you want to call it, and it works in a whole other way. But because my scenario is very unique, this isn't an exact instruction for what you're going to do. This is quite custom. But we're going to give you an example of how this works so that you can understand it in case it is something you might want to do. So we're going to show you how this works now. You're going to see right here, this is actually the signal on the left side. This is your 8-gang in the vehicle. So we have that hooked up to a relay, so it's essentially dummy proof, so that in either direction we can basically power it through the vehicle regularly or power it directly from the battery using this switch. The reason for that, obviously the normal way, use it inside, it's all good. But if I'm going to be setting up camp, it's nighttime and I need lights, but I just don't want to set up the vehicle, or I want to use my lights from my phone Bluetooth, I can do that inside the camper. I can use this switch. This is the dead man here. So right now my vehicle is off, but you're going to see the 8-gang light up. And you see it work. If I turn this off, it stops working. Drake turns on the vehicle, gives it power, and you'll see the 8-gang light up immediately. There we go. He turns it on, and away we go. Now, it's still on, right? So yep. If I make a mistake, I turn this on, it doesn't matter. There it is.
But I can turn the truck off.
And it continues. So that's how that works. That's the dead man. And Drake, good idea on that one. So we've officially got all of our wiring for our cabinet lights, and we have the rear lights all lit up as well. So we've decided that I have 8 lights in total, the rock lights for the cabinets, and we're going to use them all on the top end because we actually ran out of extension wires that Auxbeam sent us, just because of the nature of how far and how we routed it to get to this side. So what we can do though is the extra 4 lights, we found out that when we lit this cabinet up, the way the light would come down didn't work like the rest of them, and I'll show you in a second. But we're going to have to use the extra lights because my def fill's back there, so I'll put one here. I'll put another light here and probably another light down here, just because of the way the light gets blocked, like the way we did this one. So I'm going to show you all that now, and we're going to show you how the amber white LED light flush mounts turned out here at the back. Pretty slick stuff. So we're going to try this thing out. Everything's kind of temporarily set up here. So basically the way it works is this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. These all relate to this box. The way this is oriented, this is 1 to 8. Now obviously we have 30 amp circuits, 20, 10, and 5. So we had to choose the ones that make the most sense. So number 5 here, that's actually my lights at the rear. So I have it sent to a pulsing amber, which you can see there. Those lights actually have a signal wire, it's the yellow wire. So that signal wire we set up on a momentary button right here. So every time you press that button, you're gonna see the pattern at the back change. Every time I hit it. So it's switching between the amber and the white, and then obviously it's going to pulse and do all sorts of different patterns, and you can choose this. Whatever you leave it as is what it'll stay as. So personally, I'll probably keep it as white light, and I'll use, you know, the pulsing ambers for emergencies or whatever. And then you can just turn it off and it's good to go. Now for the cab lights, we have them set up here, and you can see them all underneath. Can you hit the lights? So this worked out really good. The only trouble is this one, because of this toolbox, it's kind of blocked. So we're gonna put some extra lights, but Drake's about to hit the lights and you'll see. That turned out really good. Now from my head height, you don't actually see the lights at all, especially when you're right at it doing whatever you're doing. Super bright lights. Now, because they're rock lights, fun fact, we can do all sorts of crazy little things. I'll show you the other side here. So obviously, here's the other side. One light isn't on because I didn't plug it in, but we can choose whatever, different patterns if you want to party out in the bush. So I think the rock light idea from Auxbeam was a great idea because of the way they flush mount especially. Now here's the smooth one. Well, you guys know how RGB LEDs work, but anyway, we'll set it up to white. Nice and boring. This is going to be Cass's cooking side, so it's going to be nice and lit up for her. So I'm going to mess with some of this, probably add a couple more lights on this side. Like I said, I ran out of extensions, but I have plenty of LEDs left. And then once I have them in place, I'm just going to tidy all this up and we're going to move on. Okay guys, so we're basically wrapping up what we can get done tonight. Sadly, I realized that some of this stuff can't be done because my bumper never came in. So I can't do a huge LED bar that they sent out, and 2 of the pods can't be installed as well. The clearance lights they sent, they're fantastic. There's nowhere for my truck to support them. I have automatic air louvers that controls the airflow. Basically think of it as when they're closed, it's kind of like putting cardboard on the front. So with those in the way, I can't install those there, but I do have an idea to use them when I do get a bumper. So there's probably going to be a whole other video down the road when I get that sorted out. As of right now, we are getting ready to move, so it's a little difficult sometimes to line that stuff up. That being said, let's take a look at what I did get done. Drake did a fantastic job lining up one end as I brought the rest around, so it looks really, really good. Some stuff isn't completely tidied up yet because I have to go and get some more parts tomorrow. I basically need little sticky zip tie holders so I can hide some wires. But for the rest of it, let's have a look. Okay, so my wonderful assistant here, Drake, is gonna fire some things up here. So this is how it ended up, as you can see. And we did add some LEDs there and where the fill for my def is, and these are the wires I was talking about that we didn't tidy up. But I added some extra lights to this one because of the way the toolbox blocks the same light that we have in the rest of the cabinets. It doesn't end up being that much brighter than the other ones, even though it has this many lights, just because of the way the shadows work. So we're gonna fire this thing up. Drake's gonna go turn on the controller on the inside, and you're gonna see how this works. We have to talk about that controller when we're done this too, because we got that dialed in. So right now it's going to wait, and then it's actually going to turn white right there. That's because it's searching the memory and putting the color back to the way I had set it. Now, because these are rock lights, of course, like we said, we can choose just about any color we want. So this was actually a really cool thing. So that light right there is what every other cabinet looks like, and that's great. So this side's more of a storage locker. This is where we're going to have all of our fin trail mud gear and everything else like that. This is obviously where our tools and air compressors are going to be with a battery pack, a booster pack. Down there is going to be fluids and everything else. So consider this side the garage side. That's how it works. The other side, Cass is going to have like a full cutting and cleaning and cooking setup, and it's going to be exactly the way we need it. So this is what I mean by my off-road headquarters. This turned out great. We should fire up the strobe lights. If you're sensitive to flashing lights, be careful.
I think they're off.
Okay.
Nope.
Nope. Auxbeam, these lights are unreal. So that's what it's going to be used for primarily right there, allowing me to see camp and everything else. There's the amber, and the next one I believe, the amber and white, which I don't know when I would use that, but it's there. Next option is strobing white, strobing amber, and then it alternates and we should be back to full white. Perfect. So these are great. We're going to have lots of visibility at our campsites, backing up, trailers, whatever. I know they're going to come in handy, especially with these party lights right here. So I left the drawers out on purpose just to show you guys how this would look, but it turned out fantastic. So all of this stuff right here will allow me to grow in the future to add new stuff. I'm very excited about that. All right, walk us through the switch. So this is the 8-gang RGB. Is my phone in here?
Yeah.
Perfect. I'll get that fired up for you. So what you're looking at right here, we have set up on 5, 6, 7. This one here is obviously the rear lights that I was showing you guys earlier. And then I just put this like modifier arrow. So that's the intermittent button that you're just going to press and change the signal for those rear pods. And that's how we were changing between the clear light and the amber and the flashing at the back. Obviously, because this is RGB, we have this app by Auxbeam.
So in the app too, I haven't played with it because of course this is Kyle's truck, he can do it. So you can go into the icon and you can choose each icon. I'm not sure if you can change the color of each icon, but you can name them all. So when you go on your phone, if he's in the camper and he wants his rear work lights on, then he knows not just by number, but what the name of the actual icon is. And you can change the mode in here too.
And I think you can actually get these so dialed in that it looked exactly like my LEDs here.
I got her saved right here.
So Drake put it to the little bit of an off-white, and then he toned down the brightness. Can you turn down the brightness a little bit? And I think it nails it.
So yeah, if you're a GM guy, if you go white and then just a hair bit of blue, you want like like an ice white. So
this is one of the coolest setups, and of course I have rooms for all sorts of different accessories. I still have another 30 amp and some 10 amps and 5 amp, I believe. So I have lots of room. I do have some more stuff, like I said, coming in for this that's going to be fitted into here. So this shop area will be dialed in. Very, very excited about that. So big thank you to Drake here for helping me install all this. Sadly, like I said, I wish I could have installed the other stuff, but a big thank you to Auxbeam for all of those other components. When I do get the bumper sorted out, I will have those installed, and we'll do another video about that. But you obviously know how I'm going to be hooking it up now. This system, so far, I'm very, very impressed, and I can't wait to put it to the test. I think that's about it. So again, this is Drake. His channel is going to be linked in the description, Louder Off-Road. He's going to have his version of events on his channel also. The nitty-gritty of the things that he did on his side of the work. And I'd definitely check him out. Off-road, you name it. Snowmobile, ATV. I'm sure he's going to do truck stuff. He's a big truck guy.
Truck stuff. Trailer stuff too. I got a trailer, kind of a one-of-a-kind. We're going to go through it all eventually. We're going to do a full breakdown of all the toys and their names.
Right.
There's a fleet.
So lots going on, and I think I'm going to get some beauty shots. If you have any questions about this setup, I know this is a long-winded video, and sometimes it can be complicated for some people, or I didn't answer or clarify enough for others. So just feel free to ask questions, and I will answer them to the best of my ability. The stuff that I did was a little bit different, a little bit custom, of course, because of the needs that I have. But Auxbeam has all of their stuff, all of their paperwork to show you how to do it in a more standard scenario. So don't fret, it doesn't have to be this crazy. It just tends to be when I touch it. So thanks again, guys. Like, subscribe, comment down below if you have any questions, and we'll see you guys next time.